Hi everyone and welcome to the tutorial. Today I'm going to be demonstrating how to work crocheted versions of bobbles in your knitting. I've got some examples of the bobbles here and you can see what neat and tidy bobbles they are. So if you've ever worked bobbles in your knitting before and you've been unhappy with the look of them, give these crocheted bobbles a try. They look fantastic. The downside to working crocheted bobbles in your knitting is that you do have to put your knitting needle down and pick a crochet hook up. So you have to have a crochet hook handy, and it can interrupt the flow of your knitting a little bit to be putting your needle down, picking the hook up, and then putting the hook down again and picking the needle up again. But I think that drawback is really worth it for such nice, neat looking bobbles in the end. Let's jump straight into the demonstration. The first thing I'm going to do is simply work to where my pattern will say MB or make bobble, or however the pattern has chosen to say that it's time to work a crocheted version of a bobble. So this stitch here is going to be my bobble stitch, and I'm going to let go of my right hand needle and pick up my crochet hook. So I'm using the same size crochet hook as my knitting needle. So this is a 3.5mm or US 4 knitting needle, and this is a 3.5mm USE crochet hook. So I'm going to insert my crochet hook as if it was a knitting needle. So you're inserting it knitwise into that next stitch on the left hand needle. And then we're going to take our working yarn and wrap it around the head of the crochet hook. There we go, got it that time. And then pull that yarn through to the front of our work using the head of the crochet hook. Then we're going to drop that stitch off of our left hand needle. So we've just anchored the stitch to our crochet hook. I can then let go of my left hand needle as well, because I'm going to need my left hand needle to pick up the working yarn. And that brings me to a really important point, that in crochet we wrap the working yarn around the hook in the opposite direction to how we wrap our yarn when we're knitting. So in knitting we wrap our yarn around the knitting needle this way. In crochet we're going to be wrapping the yarn this way. I didn't do that with my first stitch, this one here, because that didn't matter, to just anchor the stitch to the crochet hook, but from here on in we're going to wrap the yarn this way. So I'm going to yarn over the crochet hook, so just wrap the yarn around the head of the crochet hook once, and then we're going to insert the head of the crochet hook into this stitch. So this was the stitch that was sitting on the left hand needle, and then we pulled a loop through the stitch. So we're going to go back to this original stitch and insert our crochet hook into that big gap. Then we're going to yarn over the crochet hook again and bring that loop through to the front of our work. So we'll now have 3 loops sitting on the crochet hook. Yarn over around the head of the crochet hook again, then insert the crochet hook into that stitch again. Yarn over around the head of the crochet hook again and bring the loop through to the front of our work. So we now have 5 loops on the crochet hook. Wrap the yarn around the head of the crochet hook once again, insert the head of the crochet hook into that stitch, wrap the yarn around the head of the crochet hook again, and then draw that loop through to the front of your work. So you now have 7 loops sitting on the crochet hook. Once more, wrap the yarn around the head of the crochet hook, and then this time we're going to pull that loop through all of these other loops on the crochet hook. So this can be a multi-step process. It can be a bit too tricky to just pull that loop through in one motion. So what I like to do is just pull it through loop by loop. So as many loops as I can at a time. Oh, make sure you don't lose this loop. So you can tell the loop that you need to be drawing through the other loops is the one that's attached to your working yarn. If I pull it, that's the one that gets tighter, so that's the loop we want to pull through all the other loops. And this is why you need a crochet hook. It'd be very hard to do this with just your knitting needles. There we go. Then wrap the yarn around the crochet hook one more time and draw it through this last remaining loop. And our bobble is almost done now. So we've just sort of anchored the whole bobble with that one little sort of chain stitch. Then we'll take the crochet hook again and we're going to insert it into the next stitch down. So this was the stitch, this one here was the one that was originally on our left hand needle. We're going to go one more stitch lower, so this one here, and we're going to insert the crochet hook into the left leg of that stitch. Wrap the yarn around the crochet hook one more time, draw the loop through that stitch of the knitted fabric, and then draw it through the loop on the crochet hook. And there is our finished bobble. We can now pop this stitch onto our right hand needle without twisting it, and our bobble is complete. Pop my hook down and pull that all tight so that you can see our finished bobble. Right, let's do all of that one more time. I know it's a lot of steps, but once you get used to it, it really is a smooth process to make your bobbles. All right, this is where our next bobble is going to go. So pick up our crochet hook, insert it as if to knit into the next stitch on the left hand needle, wrap the working yarn around the head of the crochet hook, and then draw that loop through to the front of our work. Then you can drop that stitch off of the left hand needle. And then I'm going to drop the left hand needle so I can pick up the yarn with my left hand. And if you're a continental knitter and you already hold your working yarn in your left hand, that's great. Wrap the yarn around the head of the crochet hook, then insert the crochet hook into that stitch, wrap the yarn around the crochet hook, and then draw the loop through the front of your work so you have 3 loops on the crochet hook. Wrap the yarn around the crochet hook, insert the crochet hook, wrap the yarn around the crochet hook, draw it through the front of the work, wrap the yarn around the crochet hook, insert the crochet hook, wrap the yarn around the crochet hook, and draw the loop through. So you want 7 loops in total on your crochet hook. Then you wrap the yarn around the head of the crochet hook one more time and draw that loop through all these other loops. And you can do it one loop at a time if you find that easiest. There we go. Wrap the yarn around the crochet hook and then draw that loop through that last remaining stitch. Then insert the head of the crochet hook into the stitch below the one that was on the left hand needle. So that's this one here that's now looking quite gapey. So into that left leg of the stitch, and it's the one that, if you look at the next stitch on the left hand needle, there's our live stitch on the needle, there's the stitch just below the needle, and we're going to insert the crochet hook into the stitch that's parallel with that one sitting below the needle. So it's this one here. Wrap the yarn around the crochet hook, pull the loop through the leg of the stitch that you just picked up, and then through the remaining stitch on the crochet hook, and then pop that loop on your right hand needle, and the bobble is complete. If you get any loose stitches adjacent to your bobble, which can make the bobble kind of recess into your knitted fabric, like this one here is doing, it's just sort of recessing to the back of my work, you can pop that through again and pull the other stitches adjacent to it nice and tight, and that'll help it to pop out on the right side of your work. And when you block your knitted piece, you can also, when the fabric is wet, just sort of pinch the bobbles to make sure they stand out really beautifully. Otherwise, that is the end of the demonstration. That's how we work crocheted versions of Bobbles. And when you get to the wrong side of your work or the next round, if you're working in the round, you just knit or purl or do whatever your pattern says to these stitches now on your needle as normal, and that'll just push the bobbles down into your knitted fabric. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and come and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. See you next time.